Hello, welcome again to Mr. Pierre Reads Aloud. In this story, it's a little like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but instead of three bears and one girl, there is one bear and three people. So here's the story. It's called Somebody and the Three Blairs by Marilyn Tolhurst and illustrations by Simone Abel. Somebody and the Three Blairs. One Sunday morning, in a small house in the edge of town, Mr. Blair, Mrs. Blair, and Baby Blair were sitting down to breakfast. And Mr. Blair said, "It's such a fine morning. Let's go take a walk in the park." And Mrs. Blair said, "What a good idea." And Baby Blair said, "Feed the ducks." So they took out their coats and bag of breadcrumbs and they set off for the park. And while they were gone, somebody came to the door and somebody knocked. And when no one answered, somebody tiptoed right in. And he sniffed and he sniffed. And he looked at the breakfast table and he said, "This food is too dry." And then he found some other food and he said, "This food is too noisy." And then he found some other food and he said, "This food is just right." Next he looked for somewhere to sit down. So he tried out the first chair and he said, "Ouch! This seat is too hard." Then he tried the next seat and he said, "This seat is too wobbly." Then he tried the next seat and he said, "Ooh, this seat is just right." And next he looked for something to play with. So he went to the kitchen and got some cans out and he said, "This game is too noisy." And then he went to the fridge and he said, "Brrr, this game is too cold." Then he found some other stuff and he said, "This game is just right." And next he looked for something to drink. So he went upstairs, he grabbed a shower head and he said, "Ouch! This rain is too hot." And then he looked in the toilet and he said, "This pond is too small." And then he got some water from the sink and he said, "Ooh, this stream of water is just right." Next, he looked for somewhere to sleep because he was tired after all that stuff he did in the house. He tried out the first bed and he said, "This bed is too big." Then he tried the next bed and he said, "This bed is too small." Then he tried the next bed and he said, "Ooh, this bed is just right." Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Blair and Baby Blair came back from the park and they saw the breakfast table. Mr. Blair said, "Somebody's been eating my crunchies." Mrs. Blair said, "Someone's been eating my Crispies too." And Baby Blair said, "All gone! There's no more food." Then they looked around the room. Mr. Blair said, "Someone's been sitting in my chair." Mrs. Blair said, "Someone's been sitting in my chair too." Baby Bear looked at his and he said, "Busted! It's all broken." Then they went into the kitchen. Mr. Blair said, "Somebody's been emptying the cupboards." Mrs. Blair said, "Someone's been emptying the fridge." And Baby Blair said, "Naughty, naughty, naughty." Then they went upstairs. Mr. Blair shouted, "Flood!" "Help!" shouted Mrs. Blair. "Ooh, a lot of water," said Baby Blair. "Let's play." Then he looked in the bedroom. Mr. Blair said, "I think it's a burglar." Mrs. Blair said, "No, it's a monster." And Baby Blair said, "No, look, it's a big teddy bear." Mr. Blair said, "I think it's escaped from the zoo." "No, it's escaped from the circus," said Mrs. Blair. No, someone's escaping down the drain pipe." "Somebody call the police." "No, let's call the fire department." Somebody gone home," said Baby Blair. "Bye-bye. Come again and play tomorrow, Bear." The end.